Hi, this is Stephanie with SMN News, stephaniesrockshow.com. We are here with Dee Holland, notorious, known for the Sunset Strip. Nikki Sixx, dating him back in the day, obtaining her master's in psychology right now. Thanks for being on the show. Let's start first with Ratt. How did you and Steven meet? How did that happen?
I ended up going to a Ratt show, and I thought, Stephen Piercy, he's pretty cute.
Yeah.
And I told my friend at the time, I'm like, okay, I'm with him tonight. And yeah, I'm like, okay, that's the guy. We make a long story short. That night, I met him, and he invited my friend and I to a party at Don Dawkins' house. Don Dawkins used to have a mushroom-shaped house. I think it was in Santa Monica. This is Mitzi, by the way, everybody. Yeah. I got pulled over on the way, and I was driving this like little piece of shit car, and I was following him. I think he was in a Porsche at the time. And I thought, okay, that's it. He's going to leave me. He's going to take off to this party, and I'm history. Well, the cops let us go, and he waited. And so we ended up following him and went to the party, and it was a blast. It was so cool because I remember the guys from Queensryche walked into the party, and they were like these massive, like, they were fairly new at the time, and so they were like just like these massive, like giant, like looking rock stars, That kind of started it off, and then Stephen Piercy's a big race fan, or he used to be, at least. I'm talking 20-something years ago. Yeah. But he invited me to go to the races with him in Pomona, and I did. Even before that, I dated Rod Stewart.
Wow.
And I did. I've dated him twice. As my older sister was dating his producer, Bob Ezrin, at the time. And it was, well, she brought me to the studio, and Rod Stewart was there, and here I am. I'm 23, and I'm just this, like, wild, 23-year-old. I remember I had all white lace on. Everything I had on was white lace. I was like 90 pounds, blonde hair down here, a new boob job, and, so of course he loved me,
Yeah.
But I kind of just scared me. I had been married. I had been with my ex-husband since I was 16. And so
it was all new to you, and
it was new to me, yeah. And so it just kind of scared me. But he took me to a nice French dinner.
I mean, how did you get backstage? Did you just get to know them?
You probably hear this a lot from people, but I really was never the groupie. You think a groupie, you think of, somebody doing something with one of the roadies to get backstage, and that wasn't the case. I've always been a manipulative person.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
You knew how to get it
and I just knew how to do it, and a lot of times it was kind of like, I just walked right past them. And if they stopped me, I was like, what do you mean you're stopping me, and so a lot of times that was how I got backstage. I just walked right in. Nobody ever questioned me. Once I got to know Fred Saunders, he worked a lot of shows, and so I'd see Fred, and I'd be like, Fred, my sister and I, we got to get backstage.
Yeah.
And so, so we always did. And then once we got back, we were like, we need the pass. No, not that pass. Yeah. Not the after show pass. We need the pass.
Yeah. Okay, I want to get on to Nikki Sixx. Mötley Crüe is huge. The Dirt, the Heroin Diaries, the radio show. Everyone knows him. And you have a tie to him. We all saw on VH1 Classic. It was great, The Women of the Sunset Strip, and you were featured on it. How did you first meet Mötley Crüe? You have all the juice.
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, well, this is probably going to all come out in a book one day, but there's a whole lot more. So I can tell all my stories and still have more.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nikki Sixx. I first actually knew Mick Mars. This was back when I was about 15 years old. There was a club called the Fleetwood in Redondo Beach. And I was dating a guy, a bass player. I was only 15 years old. He thought I was 18, of course, but I was 15. Nice. I was dating this bass player, and his name was Jeff Nicholson. And his stage name was Nikki Sixx. Mick Mars used to show up at all the shows, and I just remember Mick being there. He was like a little guy. I remember him so. Whenever I think of Mick Mars, I think of little teeny feet and high heels. That's just how I think of him. But what happened is, and Nikki might get mad at me, but he's probably already mad at me. When he came to town, he was flipping through a photo album, and he was saying, "Who's this guy?" And it was Jeff Nicholson, the original Nikki Sixx. And Jeff Nicholson had like the hair, in the face, he left town. Nikki Sixx came along and basically assumed his identity. And he came in and said, I'm Nikki Sixx. And he was Franklin Carlton Serafino Ferrano.
Oh, my God.
That was Nikki Sixx, And so I can't believe I remember that, actually.
When did you guys first meet and actually?
Well, we had actually met when they first put the band together, because I knew Tommy Lee. I was married to a singer in a band, and he was recording at the record plant. And Tom Werman has done pretty much everybody. He did the Girls, Girls, Girls album. He was the producer of that. He was recording my ex-husband, Tommy Holland, from a band called Holland and the Bees, really big in Chicago. Married. So when my ex-husband and I split up and I came back to Hollywood, I went to a show. Cheap Trick was playing. I think it was at the Palace or the Palladium. Vince Neil actually invited me to the studio. Time he was just starting to date Charisse. And so he invited me to the studio and went to the studio. And then Nikki kind of pulled me aside and said, Vince is like really hung up on, this girl Charisse, and he's really in love with her, and I think you should go out with me. He wrote his phone number down on a piece of paper. It was like from a trash bag, and he gave me his number. And Tom Worman really discouraged it. I was like really upset with Tom Worman because he was like, Tom Worman knew my ex-husband. I mean, I had been to Tom Worman's child's birthday parties, I knew the family, And so Tom Worman was like, this is Tommy Holland's wife. You cannot go out with Tommy Holland's wife, And so I was like, Tom, shut up.
Yeah.
Let
me do my thing. It's Nikki Sixx.
Come on, this is Nikki Sixx. Enough,
Yeah.
He invites me back to the studio, and so I go back to the studio, and they're recording Girls, Girls, Girls at the time. We just sort of developed this love affair with drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of drugs did you guys do together?
And, we were all doing cocaine. I mean, everybody was doing cocaine and speed.
It's very glamorized and popular.
Yeah, we'd go to restaurants and there'd be lines on the table. It was just everywhere. At the time, Nikki was really strung out on heroin.
Did you ever participate in heroin with Nikki?
Never. And you know what? That's the one thing that I have to say about Nikki that I really absolutely adore. When I was at his house many, many nights, my sister and I, because my sister always got stuck with his roommate, John James, Nikki would be doing heroin and what the hell,
It's a beautiful, destructive relationship.
It was destructive. And funny memory that I do have to say, we were in the studio one time, and they were in the middle of doing the tracks for Wild Side. We laid out a big, long line of speed on the table. He came along, he thought it was coke, and he went and he just snorted the whole thing. And we just looked at him and we were like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. So then he was on heroin and speed at the same time. So anyway.
Completely strung out? Did they do any more work in the studio, or were they done?
They did, because he's a businessman and he took his music very seriously. Wow. I just remember hearing that pounding a Wild Side in the studio. And, we didn't go a lot of places. Nikki never wanted to leave his house.
You kind of just went to his house, hung out?
I'd go out and I'd party, and it's funny because he would call different places and say, where are you?
Can I be completely inappropriate? Asking Nikki Sixx in bed, how was it?
Oh my gosh, okay. I can tell you about Nikki Sixx is we had a few intimate moments, and like I said, this was not a relationship. I was not his girlfriend. I really wasn't. They said I was his girlfriend in VH1. I was not his girlfriend. I was a girl that he hung out with at night, and this was probably the most passion that I saw in him. We were in his room in his house, and in his bedroom he had a jacuzzi. We were sitting by the fireplace. He told me about his family and about how his father said to him when he was 16, I don't have a son. And then he told me about his sister who was had 4 kids on welfare. Nikki had a rough life, and so I think during
that brought out passion in bed, he was.
Well, I think during that period of time together, laying there, and we had been in the jacuzzi, so we were all soaking wet and dripping wet, and just laying there, and him telling me that stuff, my heart just kind of just sunk, and I realized that wow, this guy really.
He's real. He's going through a lot of trauma.
He's a real guy.
What was his dick like?
It was great. It was good. I mean,
Okay. Thumbs up.
It was better than Stephen Pearcy's.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way, okay?
Okay, we'll take that.
The thing about Nikki that was so funny is Nikki always had a 9mm gun loaded underneath his bed. I mean, come on, how much can you relax when you know there's a 9mm gun underneath his bed?
So Bret Michaels, you've known him and said hi.
I went out with him a couple of times. I never, really got too intimate, with Bret Michaels because I chose not to. I mean, he.
I saw the pictures of him at that time, and I could see why you chose not to.
Yeah, very sweet. And one night here at the Rainbow, where we are right now, the Rainbow Bar and Grill, which is where all the memories are from. God, she jumped back in her little carrier.
Friend Ron Jeremy bought you your dog. That's super cute too.
Mitzvah, because Ron Jeremy bought her for me, and of course he's Jewish, and a mitzvah is a blessing.
Thank you very much, Dee, for coming on the show.